Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Survival Tips for Parents Raising Anxious Kids. My name is Natasha Daniels. I'm a child therapist, and I'm the creator of atparentingsurvival.com. And this is made in collaboration with Made of Millions Foundation. In this episode, I want to talk to you about sleep and kids who are scared to sleep. Because ironically, or I guess it's not that ironic, that's like the number one thing I hear in my practice and online from parents that I support is, how do I help my kids sleep? And sleep and anxiety go hand in hand, because when you're alone at night, it is dark, you don't have anything distracting you, it is prime time for anxiety. I always say it's open mic night for anxiety, because it's like, oh, is this mic on? Testing 1, 2, 3. You can hear me and there's no distractions? Perfect. Let me just tell you about everything that you should worry about, right? And it is different for each kid. They're alone, they're separated, they're going to take an 8-hour mini death. That's how a lot of anxious people see it. And that's really overwhelming for someone who needs a lot of control. So today I want to go over a few things about sleep, some of the things that parents tend to do unintentionally that exacerbate sleep, and some little things that you can do to make sleep better. So all sleep is not the same. Kids have sleep issues for lots of different reasons. So the one thing that I see that parents don't do is they don't explore, they don't go in depth and find out what the core fear is around sleep. They just assume that kids have sleep issues, kids are afraid of the dark, and they really don't dive deep with their child in what is really upsetting you. So I would encourage you to dive deep and say to your child, what's the scariest part about going to bed at night? Now, I always like the words, and if you've watched my other episodes, I'm pretty sure I touch on this in those other episodes. Language is key. And so I don't want to say, what scares you at night, right? Because even though I'm not trying to have a tone that sounds devaluing their struggles, it is. When I say, what scares you at night, a child can interpret that as, I shouldn't be scared, and you think it's stupid, right? And sometimes we even go further and we say, there's nothing to be scared about. Those are not really helpful words. Even though it's said with love and it's like a super common parent thing to say, it's not helpful because it makes a child feel dumb. And we don't want anxious people to feel dumb, because even adults get scared at night. Even adults have anxiety that other people don't worry about. And it's not because they're dumb or stupid, it's because they have a physiological response that makes them panic more than the average person. So when your child says, I'm scared at night, we don't want to swoop in and say you're fine or you have nothing to worry about, because we're shutting down conversations. We're not developing skills. And the whole purpose of anything related to our anxious kids, or kids in general really, is to have learning opportunities. I mean, that's how I approach parenting, or at least I try. I'm not Mother Teresa, but when I have my Mother Teresa hat on, even though she didn't have any kids, I want to approach my kids with intention. Like, what's the lesson here? How can I take this and turn it into something good that they will learn from? And sleep is a big one, right? Because sleep hygiene, how a child is able to fall asleep and how they're able to maintain their sleep, is going to follow them throughout their entire life. So we're not actually just helping our kids sleep. We are actually developing the foundation of how they will sleep for the rest of their life. No pressure, but it's up to them, right? We're just coaches. I always say we're just, in the passenger seat for this journey, but we do have maps and we can help guide our kids, and that is important. So figure out with your child, what is the core fear? Start with that. Don't assume. Now, you might be right, because you might know your child and they're very verbal and articulate, and you might be like, they scream this every night, Natasha. It's not rocket science. But for a lot of you, you may not know. Do you know the nitty-gritty details of what keeps them up at night? What are those thoughts? What is their imagination telling them? So start with what is their core fear and use the language, what is the scariest part about going to bed? And if that doesn't work, there are other different ways. And I have a whole episode on how to communicate with your child and get them to talk, and that might be a good one to watch if you haven't been watching these in order. There are 10 in this series, and this is number 8. So there's 7 more that you haven't watched, possibly, and there'll be 2 more to come. But I would say, what is the hardest part about sleep? Some kids don't like the word scared or anxious. If they have a lot of pride, we want to get those words out of that sentence and just say, what's the hardest part about sleep? If you already have identified that they have anxiety, you named it, that's in one of my episodes. It's really good to personify it. It's something that a lot of us child therapists recommend. It's even adult therapists recommend that, to personify the anxiety and call it by a different name. And so I might say, what's Mr. Worry telling you at night? That actually helps too, because it separates the child from their fears and they don't feel as dumb or embarrassed to tell you, because it's, what's Mr. Worry telling you? I know you're fine at night, but what's Mr. Worry telling you? I would only do that if the child initially says, I'm not scared. I don't know why. I just can't go to sleep. Well, I know you're fine. I know you're not scared, but what's Mr. Worry telling you? So that's another approach when a child kind of is shutting down. But once you discover that core fear, then you have some more material to work with. So let's talk about some of the most common core fears. There are a lot of them, and I actually have an entire PDF on the most common core fears, and I will leave a link below so that you have that. But I'll go through a couple of them. So a lot of kids worry about bad guys. A lot of kids worry about monsters, aliens. So you have that whole category. Paranormal. A lot of kids worry about other things that you may not think about, right? Those are the obvious ones that we think kids are scared of something. They're scared of either something realistic, like a bad guy, or something kind of more fictional and fantasy-based, like monsters or other characters that they have seen on TV. But there's a whole other slew of categories that kids can be afraid of. They can be afraid that they're never going to fall asleep. I hear that a lot with anxious kids. What happens if I never go to bed? Then I'll be up all night. Now, sometimes that feeds back to the first theme, where if I'm up all night by myself, now I'm more vulnerable and something bad can happen to me. Some kids with separation anxiety aren't worried about themselves. Some are worried about their parents. What if something bad happens to my parents? I can't see them. What if they have a medical emergency? Or what if someone comes in and harms them? So the focus is on the parent and not the child. Some kids worry that they may never wake up. And so they're worried that they're going to die in their sleep. That's actually really common anxiety. Some kids worry that they might have a bad dream. I don't want to have a bad dream because they're so upsetting and they're so realistic. I just don't want to fall asleep. That's actually a very common one in my house. And some kids worry about their main themes, but they have a nice quiet stage for anxiety to just whisper it to them. So they might be worried if they have social anxiety about something dumb they said that day, or maybe they said last week. They might be ruminating. They might be worried about all the things they have to do in the next few days or the next week. They might be worried about a test the next day. They might be worried about the things that they didn't do. If they have OCD, they might have all these intrusive thoughts that are popping in and are making them upset. Or they might have to get up and go check on lots of things. Or they might have to pee and pee again because they're worried that they might have an accident or they feel like their bladder is full. So there's a lot of different things that would keep a child up that actually has nothing to do with sleep. It's just that because sleep is a quiet time, they have more opportunity to be harassed by their anxiety or OCD. So those are just the tip of the iceberg for things that can be happening with your child. So once you know your child's core fear at night, then you want to help them work through that. So you want to talk to them about what their core fear is, talk about their, what I call red thoughts in my Crush Anxiety online class, and then you want to help them develop green thoughts. What are different ways I can look at this? If we don't attack their cognitive distortions, the things that are keeping them up at night, the gas line to the fire that is keeping them upset, then they're going to continue to get nervous and continue to worry, even if they're deep breathing and listening to calming music. None of that's going to help if we don't attack the thoughts that are perpetuating the fear. And that's why I always go to the core fear. I want to attack the core fear. I want to readdress that with a child, and I want to reframe it, and I want them to reframe it, not me, because it's more powerful when kids do it themselves. So we can help our kids try to reframe that thinking. And we don't want to minimize their fears or devalue it by saying, well, that's ridiculous. You know all the doors are locked. You're fine. You're safe. We want to say, I get that can be scary. That's a very common fear, in fact, and a lot of people feel unsafe. And your worry cloud will make you feel unsafe because your worry cloud is on overdrive and it's always looking for anything to be suspect and possibly dangerous. And so your worry clouds are just going to freak out when you just say, it's time to go to bed. Your worry clouds, oh my gosh, we're going to be harmed, right? So you definitely want to do all that work when you're working with anxiety. And that's not what this episode is about, but it really has to be based on that foundation that you've already built on how to talk to your kids about anxiety, how to crush anxiety. You need all that foundation because you're going to be building on top of that when you're dealing with fears around bedtime. So make sure that you're doing all that work first. And we did talk about that in prior episodes. And I definitely have tons of resources on how to help your child with anxiety because you're going to take all those skills and apply it to the sleep issue. So I also want to get into some of the things that parents do because they want to help, but inadvertently it tends to make things worse. So let's go over a couple of those. So a lot of parents, including myself, will often tell their kids, and I try not to do this, but sometimes it just flies out of my mouth, will say, "You're safe, I'm right here. You're fine, I'm right here," right? Seems like a good thing to say, right? Why wouldn't that be bad? Why is that bad, Natasha? My gosh. Well, unfortunately, it isn't that great, and I'll tell you why. Because when we tell a child they're safe because we are right there, you are safe, I'm right here, we are really confirming to the anxiety that there's something that they need protection from. And so their brain is going to hear, my mom's right here, so I'm good. She's going to keep an eye out. So while I lose control and fall asleep into my mini 8-hour death, if you're lucky 8 hours, my mom is going to guard me and make sure I'm safe, at least until I fall asleep. And then when I wake up in the middle of the night and my guard isn't there, what am I going to do as a kid? You probably already know the answer because it's probably happening. They're going to run to your bedroom because my guard is not with me. And so I fell asleep with my guard there. I felt safe. And then I woke up and I was guardless. And so I had to run into your room and sleep in your bed to make sure that I'm in between two guards so I feel safe again. So we don't want to perpetuate the feeling that they are only safe when we protect them. So it's just tweaking our language and tweaking a little bit about how we approach it. So I say to my kids when I can remember, because it does come out naturally, that I'm right here, right? I have 3 anxious kids and they have all had sleep issues throughout their life because they all have anxiety and 2 have OCD as well. So it makes it rough around bedtime. But when my son will say, I'm scared, I will say, what do you need to tell yourself? Because we've worked on this before, so he knows his green thoughts. And he will say, we are all safe in this house. Or in the beginning, I would say to my kids, we are all safe in this house. And I would even actually go one step further and I would say, I don't keep you safe. We are all safe. How are we safe? And I'll walk them through it. You tell me, how are we safe? What do we do at night to keep our house safe? Well, the doors are all locked, the windows are locked, right? We live in a pretty safe neighborhood. I'll go through the different things that they have already come up with to remind them. So instead of saying, I'm right here, I will say, what do you need to tell yourself? We are all safe in this house. So just semantics, but you want to start separating out you plus being near your child equals safety. We don't want that formula, because if that formula is solidified, then good luck ever trying to get away from that bedroom. You're going to be winding up on the floor, or they're going to wind up in your bedroom perpetually. So the other thing that tends to happen is that parents think if they can just make this room more enjoyable, their children will sleep in there. So I can't tell you how many parents I've worked with where they have bought really beautiful bedspreads and they've revamped the bedroom. We have a new Star Wars theme. We've spent hundreds of dollars in your bedroom. Now you'll sleep in it because it's super cool. Well, I'm sorry, but if you brought me to the beautiful Bahamas and the beach was beautiful and the ocean was gorgeous and there was coral everywhere, and then you said, we're just going to put you in a shark tank, and trust me, the sharks won't bother you because you're in a tank, and look at this beautiful, beautiful scenery down here. You'll enjoy it, right? Because we brought you to a beautiful place. No, I'm still going to be scared of the sharks that are zooming around me. It's the same thing. It really is the same thing for kids who are anxious at night. They feel like they are in danger, if that is their theme, or they feel panicky, regardless of their theme. And it doesn't matter how you beautify their room, that is not going to take away their anxiety. You have to get to their core fear, you have to address the core fear, and you have to systematically work with them on how to remove that fear, whether they have to play detective or tell themselves something different. We're not going to go into all of the details of how to work through that because that's very much like how you would work through anxiety. But you don't want to throw platitudes and redesign their room and think that things are going to get better. Parents get really frustrated and they actually get angry at their kids when that doesn't work. So save yourself some time, save yourself some money, and don't go down that path. Another pitfall that happens a lot is that parents will be punitive. They think, I can just discipline this behavior out. It's bad behavior and they'll get consequenced. They love their electronics, and so I will just punish them and they will learn to stay in their room. Anxiety will always trump punishment. So if it's anxiety-based and not behaviorally based, but if you had a child who was anxious and was having a hard time at bedtime, those would be huge red flags for me that there's probably anxiety underneath that, even if they're having some difficult behavior, because bedtime is such a difficult time for anxious kids. So punishing will never, ever overpower anxiety. It just won't work that way. You can punish me if you're, let's go back to that shark cage. If you put me in that shark cage and you said, Natasha, if you don't go in there, we're going to charge you. We're going to charge you, I don't know, $100,000. I don't know. My fear is still pretty great that I might be like, is there a payment plan? Because I'm not going in there. So be cognizant of that. Now, sometimes we have partners who want to punish and they don't get anxiety and they just think that we're being too soft or too coddling. And really, they don't get that. We have to train our kids systematically over time to be able to face their fears. It doesn't happen overnight. A lot of times we have to set up mini challenges and work towards that. And I go into how to break that down into small steps in my class, how to help kids who are scared to sleep. But you want to systematically go through and build up their tolerance, work on their thoughts, and work on their tolerance to be alone in their room, if that's your main goal, because some people don't have that as a main goal, and that's okay. It's not about family beds or not family beds or sleeping with my child or not sleeping with my child. It is, what do you want for your family? What is your end goal? And that will look different for different families and different philosophical stances. And that's okay, right? Everyone is coming from a different place. But you have to know where your end goal is. Where do I want my child? What does this look like for me? Do I want my child to be able to sleep comfortably next to me without panicking? Do I want my child to be in a bed in my room next to me? Or is that not my goal? Is my goal, I want my child to be in their own room having a good sleep while I'm in my room having a good sleep? It doesn't matter what your goal is, because this isn't about that. It's about where you want to get your child and how to get your child there. So there are things that we do as parents that hold that goal back, and that's what I'm covering in this lesson. What are the things that we're doing that may be unintentionally holding our kids back from reaching that goal? You also want to convey to your child, what is the goal? This is the goal, so that you're very clear. The goal is for you to be able to do this. Now, if you're sitting there waiting for your child to eventually decide not to want to sleep with you or not to run into your bed at night, you might not want to wait that long because a lot of kids will never outgrow this. And I'm not saying this to scare you, but a lot of parents will say to me, I think they're just going to outgrow this. If they have anxiety, if they have an anxiety disorder, and they have anxiety in a lot of different areas, and sleep is just one of those, it won't naturally go away typically. It might, and you can wait, or you can be proactive, roll up your sleeves, and start developing skills right away so that their sleep hygiene is good, they're developing good sleep routines, and they are moving towards your goal sooner than later. I have worked with kids who are 18, 19, and 20 who are still in their parents' bed. So it is not a baby thing, it's not a developmentally typical thing when we're talking about acute anxiety and severe panic at night. There is a spectrum, and everyone falls on different places in the spectrum. But I always like to grab the bull by the horns and say, let's work on this now. I'm not going to, wait and see. The wait and see approach for me doesn't work. I've been told by way too many pediatricians in my life to wait and see for serious issues like feeding anxiety and things that would have put their health at risk. So the wait and see approach is just not my style, and it may not be your style either if this current situation is not something you want to see in 5 years. So start to develop this plan and partner with your child and say, our goal is to get you here because we love you, and it feels good to not be scared at night. It feels good to go to bed feeling calm and safe. And if kids are not going to bed feeling calm and safe, their melatonin levels decrease, which actually exacerbates the problem because now their melatonin is decreasing, which happens with anxiety in general. So I'm having a hard time sleeping at night because of that as well. And I'm feeling panicky. So I'm going to bed with all this adrenaline and cortisol pumping through my body. That's not a good way to have a restful sleep. So we want to help our kids develop a system, and we have to partner with them. So we know now that telling them that they're safe because we're right there is not good. We also know that punishing them and being punitive is not good. We know that designing their bedroom to be like, beautiful is not really going to fix the problem. What about bribery? Can we do that? Can we just bribe them so they'll just go to sleep? Well, unfortunately, that's a pitfall too. So I am a big fan of positive reinforcement, not bribery. I am a huge fan of that. In fact, that's a big tool in my toolbox for my practice with kids I work with when they're doing exposures and they're doing challenges and they're doing hard work in therapy. And it's my practice at home with my own 3 kids. But you can't just throw a big shiny object in front of a child and say, now go and swim with the sharks. Because if you do that to me, I'm still not getting in that tank, right? That tank is too scary. I'm not going to go swim with the sharks because you're going to give me $100,000. Well, I mean, everybody has their cost, but I don't think I would. And kids are the same way. I mean, you'd have to get a really big shiny object, and the goal is not to go broke to help your child sleep. And in fact, that's really not teaching them any coping mechanisms. So the first step is to build up their skills. If you don't build up their skills first, it doesn't matter what you're reinforcing. And then after that, you can, incentivize them by saying, if you can use this skill, then you can earn this each night. And so it's slowly building up their skills. And that has a lot more traction. So if I can tell my child, I want you to go through your green thoughts and we are working on this one skill. Can you not shout out for me? Or I'm going to sit right across the bedroom from you. And as long as you don't get out of your bed, you can earn blah, blah, blah. So it's very systematic. It's not like you are either in your bed all alone and I'm downstairs in the living room, or you are with me in my bed. It's not black and white. There is this huge gray. Like anything else we teach in anxiety, it's building up a hierarchy or a ladder that you're slowly building. You're building up their confidence, their self-esteem, and then over time, then they are going to be able to reach that goal. So no one jumps from here to here overnight. And you're rewarding every step of the way. And you're very specific about it. Today, as long as you don't call out and you stay in your room and I am in the door frame, right? This is a baby step. Then you can earn blah, blah, blah in the morning. And I do go into it in more detail in my online class, how to help kids who are scared to sleep. But I'm just giving you a big overall view of what this looks like because there are some pitfalls that you can stop doing today to make some progress. So I hope that you found just a snapshot of how to view bedtime, how to view fears at bedtime differently than what you've been viewing them, and some quick pointers on just how to tweak maybe some of the approaches that you're taking and push you in a new direction so that you can start attacking the issue in an effective way that's going to get you some progress over time. Sleep is one of the number one hardest issues to deal with. And I always tell parents, if you've got bigger issues, bigger front burner issues, tackle those first because sleep is going to literally and figuratively exhaust you. And you want to be consistent and stick with it. And so you have to be all in when you're going to be working on sleep. I do have a couple of YouTube videos that are directly for kids and teens to help them with sleep. And if you want more direct help, you can always check out my online on-demand class, How to Help Kids Who Are Scared to Sleep, where I have modules that are for you and walk you through all these skills, and I have worksheets, and I actually have videos directly for your child. So as you're learning things, you can show them a video, and then they can learn things, and you can set up a plan together. It walks you through how to set up this plan and how to carry it out and how to eventually have some success with sleep and fears. And wouldn't that be nice? Because without sleep and without rest, nobody does well the rest of the time, and anxiety in general tends to get worse. So I will be back for episode number 9, and I hope that you find the sparkle in everything you do, and I'll talk to you again next time. Take care.